Meeting. Thank you, Jennifer, for your talk about family and Sangha. And it brought to mind my favorite story about Sangha. So I want to share that before we go to questions. And it's actually out of, I think, a Hasidic tradition, but it's about a Christian monastery that's where the population of monks is really aging. And their grounds are abut a national park, and lots of families come and picnic there, and they meet with them. They meet the monks, but there are no new monks coming, no young men joining the monastery. And this really troubles all of the monks, especially the abbot, whose job it is to really, the buck stops with the abbot. So they talk about this in chapter, and so the abbot says, well, I'm going to go talk to our friend, the rabbi, who's a hermit, lives in a little cabin in the woods, adjacent also to the national park. And so one day he walks down through the woods to visit the rabbi who's there. And rabbi invites him in and offers him some tea, and they're old friends. And so they sit and chat. And then the abbot brings up his concerns, all the monks' concerns about the monastery, and asks the rabbi, do you have any advice? Can you help us? And the rabbi considered, and then he said, no, I'm sorry, I don't have any advice. And they continued to visit, and then the abbot started to take his leave. And as he was heading out the door, the rabbi just casually said, one amongst you is the Messiah. And the abbot was already headed out the door, and it so felt out of context that they didn't say any more, and he went back to the monastery. And this was like this seed that went into him, and it didn't make any sense, but it went in. And when chapter came around, all the monks asked him about the visit, and he said, yeah, he said he didn't have any advice. But then he said this odd thing: one amongst you is the Messiah. And nobody knew what that meant. It gave everybody a question. And yet, as they went about their days, day after day, week after week, it was digesting in there. It was giving them, it continued to give them a question. And they started thinking, and now you're going to hear me making stuff up. Well, I don't think it's the abbot. I mean, he's wonderful, but he's already kind of done his thing. And I don't think it's Brother Thomas, because he's kind of greedy. He wants things for himself. Yeah, he's generous. He also gives things. He's really generous. And I don't think it's Brother Daniel, because he really eats too much. He's he just eats too much. On the other hand, boy, he puts a lot of love into his cooking. On and on. And then, well, it can't be me. I mean, I live with in my own mind. I know what a mess it is. But and it went like that with every one of them. raising, it gave them a new view of one another and themselves. It opened it up. And they started being more not so tied into their preconceptions, more open to each these other monks they've known for years, but they started seeing them with kind of fresh eyes. And what it ended up doing was things lightened up. They gave each other more rope and more room to be more than each other's preconceptions. And that became noticeable to the people who came to the national park to picnic and chat with them. They started noticing a difference in how these monastics were with each other and with them. And of course, as the story goes, slowly, some people started feeling attracted to that way of life. Oh, if they can be like this, maybe it's something I'm interested in. And some young men became novices, and it started a new life, a new growth. And this story I've always loved this story. And I think how it relates to us, to our Zen practice, is the teaching is clear. Every one of us all have Buddha nature. We're already perfect and complete. We don't believe it. And we have these ideas about ourselves and each other that kind of limit, but we know it's not necessary, and we just sit ourselves down and start bringing inquiry and curiosity to ourselves, to one another, to a situation, and that fresh mind, that beginner's mind, appears through this process. And what a gift. What a gift to ourselves, to one another, and to the world. I myself am incredibly grateful for this practice. So that's my story for this morning. Any questions? Charlie, hi.
Nancy, I'm not sure that I've really got a question any more than wanting to thank you for a remarkable story. I see a lot of my own questions and thoughts wrapped up in those kinds of concerns because among our practicing Sangha that practices together when we're not on Zoom, and that's been a long time, aside from the one hybrid retreat that we had this summer that Jennifer referred to. It seems that we have an aging community, and it's always been my concern about how to attract more people to our practice. And Zoom has kind of, for me, offered insight into how much broader our Sangha really is, even though many of those people can't practice immediately in the Dharma room together. We can't do that right now. And maybe by the time everything settles down, we still can't do that except in a hybrid way. But it's really been a wonderful thing for me, and I don't know what your thoughts or comments are about Zoom practice like this, but I'd be welcome to hear them.
Well, just to update you, I don't live at the Providence Zen Center anymore. I moved about a year and a half ago up here to Waterville, Maine. And so during the pandemic, So all of my practice, almost all of my practice has with other people has been on Zoom. And boy, what a boon it has been for me. I was skeptical, especially about retreats, how they would compare to in person. And I was really, I have been very pleasantly surprised at how supported, how I feel part of a Sangha with, with all these people with our faces on the computer screen and showing up. I mean, showing up is hugely important in any retreat. Just come and be there and try. And that's what people are doing, whether it's hybrid or on Zoom. And I feel supported by that. And my own experience has been that it has really helped me just stay put on my own chair. I've been sitting on a chair and follow the schedule. I noticed that things come up on Zoom that are the same as in person. For instance, check-in. If people don't have their screens on, then I notice, and I know I'm not alone in this, the mind can go, well, are they actually there? But that's been good too. I mean, it's always good to see that, useful to see that mind that makes stuff, and then just try to let it go and come and take care of my business, come back to this practice that I'm doing and not worry. And if someone's falling asleep on the cushion, well, I've heard a wonderful story about that, where monks complained to the Zen master how a certain monk was falling asleep all the time. And he made a comment along the lines of, well, would that your minds could be so relaxed. So I don't know, Charlie, I found Zoom practice to be wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, it's different, but I've been incredibly grateful for it. And I don't, you touched on the concern with the Sangha aging. I see some young faces here, and I have this, it seems to me an awful lot of young people are way more comfortable with technology and finding their way around it more easily than I do. And it certainly has opened things up globally. I'm not sure. Is this mostly local? Kansas local? No?
No, there's quite a few people here that are not local.
Yeah. And that's been my experience. I do this early morning practice 4 mornings a week, and a good third of the people are from other parts of the globe. And I was at this 21-day, the new challenge. Some of you were there this morning, the opening ceremony. And boy, it was 31 people and all from all over the globe. So there are big benefits to this. And if and when things open up enough, I know that there are a lot of people who want to keep the hybrid model going for a number of reasons, and that's one of them. Just to harken back, the worries are, there's something to notice. If they keep coming up, then the worry energy is not so useful, but something that keeps coming up is worth noticing and then addressing, and have conversations and find out, help each other address whatever that is. And if it's an aging sangha that needs some young blood, then look to our own practice and find a way of bringing the light, that this lightning, the dharma light, to your, as you're walking down the street and buying a latte, and, whatever your daily life holds, and people will notice. Any other questions?
Nancy, yes. You mentioned the monastery, then all of a sudden I remember you were a nun long time ago. Can you share a little bit about that part of your life with us?
Sure. How late does this practice go?
I think until 11:30. Am I right, Jennifer?
So 6 more minutes. Okay. So in my mid-30s, I became a novice nun out of a great deal of enthusiasm for the practice, commitment for the practice, and a fair dollop of confusion about my what I wanted, what kind of life I wanted. So I was at Cambridge, living at Cambridge Zen Center. I started there briefly and then went to Korea and took novice precepts, and then did a 90-day Kilche, and then did a 90-day Heije where we studied Korean every day, and then did a solo retreat in the Hermitage above Sudaksa. And then family called. And I had not made the transition. I don't know if I had not made the transition to full monastic mind. And I really felt the call of wanting to help. My grandmother was 99 and having some small heart attacks, and Mom wanted some help. And so I came back and helped, and then lived at Cambridge and then Providence Zen Center mostly, and stayed a nun. So for about 2.5 years, I did the form, the shaved head, the gray uni, and it wasn't, I was having big questions about whether it was what I wanted in terms of the form of my life. And so I rested my precepts for about the same time, and then I returned them because it became clear to me that I wanted to live a lay life. And I think a lot of people go into that for different reasons, but it's usually, there's a big piece that is a strong commitment to practice. These days, and in those days, there was no Musang Sa, there was no really clear training facility in Korea. And I think it really takes that to make that change from lay person to monastic person, that consciousness change. You need to be immersed in a monastic community. It's the rare person, I think, who can, unless they're older and really done it for a while, who can stay just do that monastic practice in the middle of the lay community. As much as the lay people want to help and support you and appreciate you, there's at least my experience was making there was a change that needed to happen in sense of self, for lack of a better word, that I did not do. Does that speak to you, to what your question, some?
Yes, thank you.
But, you know, I'm so appreciative of the monastics, the people who are monastics and stay with that. You know, it's because what it's saying is my life is available for the Dharma. That's my job. And what a gift. So maybe time for one more question.
Nancy, this
Jennifer.
question came up earlier today during orientation, and so I want to go ahead and ask it. Can you talk about our mudra and what the significance of our mudra is?
Well, I can try. I'm no scholar, but our mudra is, I mean, there are tons of mudras. And so if you Google them, you'll get a lot more information and you'll get a lot of mudras. I've done it. But we use the universal mudra, and it's left fingers over right fingers, thumbs lightly touching, forming kind of an ellipse, and holding it against your belly. So the thumbs are kind of at the navel level. I think there are esoteric teachings about the energy of which hand over which hand and that kind of thing. I'm so not knowledgeable or even personally experienced with how that might, about that. I find that having this very simple hand position and having it at our center is very useful. It helps me to come back when I find myself up in my feelings or my thinking, and I want to sort of, it's time to sort of ground myself. Having the mudra there it helps bring my attention and energy back down to the center, to this more grounded, stronger, neutral place, this balanced place. Words don't quite do it, but that's the idea of what I want to get across. Does that speak to what you asked, Jennifer? Well, I know it's time to go, and I'm so appreciative of all of you for your practice and your direction, and finding a way of integrating it into our daily life. You know, so people are doing daily practice, doing retreats, and also this mind of just, how is it just now? What am I doing just now? And bringing the attention to this moment in our family, you know, in our work, you know, brushing our teeth, not just sitting on the cushion. This morning, at the opening ceremony, a lot of people were wanting to do a challenge of doing mantra walking, where they wanted to be outside walking and bring their attention to that. or maybe doing mantra as they're doing it, or how is it just now as they're doing it. Some people wanted to do more mindful eating, not be multitasking all the time. Really wonderful, practical ways to integrate practice in daily life. Mindful sitting with your child, like Yumi. One woman wanted to spend time, just some time with her family every day, not busy time, but just being with her family for a little bit every day. So what do you want? What do I want? And let's find a way of doing that. So thank you all.